Hello and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. I'm Rob Kammer, sitting in with my producer, Affogato. We got a very special guest coming into the studio today, based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Someone who is going to bring culture and refinement to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast. He is the gentleman of exquisite caliber, Godrick Sandwell. Sit down to talk about how a man of his stature ends up in the wacky world of professional wrestling, amongst other things, of course. But it's really cool being able to talk to him and pretending that Affogato is not rubbing her face upon my mic stand right now. But that being said, let's just go ahead and jump to that interview. Of course, we gotta pay the coffers first. So let's get ourselves coffee. Let's get ourselves an energy drink. Let's get ourselves just like a whole gosh darn coffee maker. And I'll be back, un momento, with Godrick Sandwell. Hey, folks. The Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, the Confusion Wrestling Podcast. As I said at the top of the show, very special guest sitting in the studio with me this evening. He is the gentleman of exquisite caliber. Gosh, I've boxed this already. So we're
Well, I tend to get my dates mixed up too, so I mean that is apropos on some occasions. But if I may, I can introduce myself if it's a little bit easier. It's no problem.
Oh, you could probably do it better than I can too. So,
Oh, all right, I will take center stage then, because, ladies and gentlemen, angels and demons, Nephilim and Cambion, Lycanthrope and Dumbfear, the gentleman of exquisite caliber, Godrick Sandwell, at your service.
Yeah, I couldn't have done that with such flourish. So,
Please don't make me blush.
But barring the botching of your introduction, how are you doing today, sir?
It's been an interesting 24 hours. That's more of a personal note. But on to bigger, better things. How about you, sir?
No, can't complain. The weather is fine. The weather is, I don't know, we'll call it stabilizing for the Midwest. It is staying consistent, if nothing else. So, I got out and about. It's a great day. But this is we're giving you all the attention for this. So, I'm going to start the party with the the standard, never before asked, totally original question. Like, what made you a fan of professional wrestling?
Oh man, that takes me back many, many, many years. Thanks for calling me old, by the way. Well, obviously, when I was much younger, my parents introduced me to professional wrestling back in the, let me think here, that would be the golden era of professional wrestling. Not quite the, at that particular time, triple WF. It would have been the WWF at that particular moment. So that was my first foray into it, and just been hooked there ever since.
So you were a WWF guy instead of a WCW or NWA guy, if we're going to really date ourselves on this.
Well, I would never balk at NWA. No disrespect ever towards them. No way. WCW, I have to admit, I didn't appreciate them at the time because of how my household was at that particular time. But looking back at it, especially through the archives and seeing some of the things that they were doing in comparison to at that particular time, well, I'll just say it as it is today, would be WWE. I don't know. There are some things that WCW did from a more match standpoint that I appreciated more, but obviously the street goes both ways.
Oh, Of course, and I don't know, like I was just a wrestling connoisseur. Like if it was on, I was gonna watch it. It didn't matter. Like yes, I was a bit more loyal to the WW than F, but you know, if 605 on a Saturday, I was gonna watch WCW. Didn't matter. But who kind of caught your eye back in those days? It kind of like paved the way for Godrick to potentially enter the realm of professional wrestling himself.
Well, I mean, I hate to state a more obvious answer, and I'll start by saying rest in peace to this gentleman. I have to go with Hulk Hogan. He was my first introduction into that world, just in general. But I noticed that as I got obviously a little bit older and I started paying attention to the more subtle nuances of professional wrestling, I started leaning a little bit more towards, say, Bret Hart, because I am a big technical wrestling fan. I do appreciate the charisma, albeit maybe not some of the more, como se dice, antics of one Shawn Michaels. But I also have to admit that, again, same thing. I didn't appreciate it at that time, but looking back now, I'm a big fan of, say, a Lord at that particular moment, Steven Regal, or a Lord William Regal, if you prefer. I'm a big fan of Dean Malenko as well.
I veritable who's who. Like you can't fault any of those names. And sometimes people cringe saying Shawn Michaels, but like you got to think he came back and had that generational run. Like even if like we ignored the first half of his career prior to the back injury, like arguably there was none better doing it while he was on his game.
I do agree. That's why I kind of said it was more along the like the in ring untouchable. However, outside, obviously, anybody who knows that that's a whole different story.
That could be a whole nother podcast, and Lord knows it's been a whole nother like dozens upon dozens of podcasts. But we won't worry about Shawn Michaels on this here podcast. Outside of noting, what a great showman he was. So, what was the final straw that had you deciding to cross the barricade and becoming a professional wrestler yourself?
From a watching professional wrestling standpoint, or just simply in general, because that's probably two different answers.
Whichever one you think is more interesting, or both. And if you just want to rattle on incoherently for a few minutes, whichever.
Ah, I'm not one to be so garrulous, but I do appreciate the offer. Let's see. I'll probably go with what exactly got me into the business in the first place. That's probably a lot more interesting. Many years ago, obviously, I watched WWF, some WCW at that time, ECW. I unfortunately was not introduced to NWA at the time, and well, grudges be what they may, but I'm not going to be unpleasant on this podcast. Um, trying to think here. How old was I at that particular time? It's been many years. You'll have to forgive me. I want to say I had to have been between 20 and 23. That I was out with my grandmother one day. Um, I saw an advertisement for a local independent promotion in this area from where I'm at. For anybody who wants to know, I'm actually from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But anyways, I saw this random ad at a restaurant. I forget where it was, but anyways, I saw that and I had a couple of questions as to obviously what is this? What is this claiming to be professional wrestling, et cetera, at that time because I I hate saying this, but I was not as astute of a student as I am today. But suffice it to say, it was not that particular show that I had seen. I believe it was the next one that I went to. So to put it into context, I saw it advertised for October, I believe it was. Please forgive me if my timeline is a little off. So that would have meant I would have went to the show in November. And that was my first introduction into actually independent professional wrestling, which obviously we all get our start somewhere, and that's where I'm at right now.
Well, and I mean, The Pittsburgh area is kind of an unheralded area for professional wrestling. Like a lot of stuff, like it was a whole WWF town in addition to Philly, of course. But even nowadays, like I pops along my handful of companies from Pittsburgh pop up along my timeline, and like had a guest from the area in the form of the Gavel David Lawless, who
Ooh, I know that
who,
name.
who like just flat out said like I work 50 dates a year and I don't travel more than 2 hours from my house. And I'm like, that there's the hotbed of Pittsburgh. And don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert at it because I'm out in the Midwest and I can only consume so much wrestling at one time. Um, but I think that's a obviously a good area to come up into, especially if you have an interest in the sport as well.
I agree. Calling Pittsburgh a hotbed is actually apropos. If I would try to count the number of independent promotions, just probably within, I would say maybe about hour and a half, 2 hour sphere or radius, whatever you would prefer, we might be here for a little while.
And that's never a bad thing. Like the more wrestling out there for all of us, you know the better, as far as I'm concerned, because the more places people get to work, the more cash money is flowing into the other wrestlers pockets, and you know building the economy right there, brother.
I agree. I agree. There I do have to say that I do get disappointed when I see certain promotions or just promotions in general canceling their shows, because then that means obviously somebody like me would be out money and merchandise and just a moment to entertain the fans, because that's just what we do, and or at least I hope that's what we do.
Oh yeah, it's the cancellations and what's the old adage? Card subject to change. The dreaded phrase on every poster should posters
Always.
properly still exist. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, they are still around, and yeah, card subject to change. And actually, I ran into that last night myself. So always make sure that that's let me see. Would that be wrestling 102 or three, depending on who your trainer is at that particular moment?
but of course, but on the flip side, it goes along with the other adage. Always bring your gear because you never know when you'll be needed on the show. I've had stories like that pop up on this here podcast as well. But again, tailoring towards you and your geographic area, like how much of an influence is the Pittsburgh sphere of professional wrestling kind of an influence on Godrick Sandwell?
I guess it depends on what perspective you look at it from. From an overall standpoint, Pittsburgh is known for a lot of things. Obviously, we are a sports city. We have football, we have baseball, we have hockey. Personally, I'm the little bit more of a hockey fan these days, even though I don't really watch it. As far as the professional wrestling goes, however, still one of the best places to be for that specific activity, endeavor, whatever you would prefer to call it. So from that standpoint, I would definitely say I gravitated more towards that. It's just a natural lean for me. However, in terms of me personally, I would be lying if I said that the that my location didn't have an influence on that, because that would be egregious. There there's a lot of things that I could be doing. There's a lot of other places. There's a lot of other ventures that I could be on, but I if I'm not in that ring in some capacity, if I'm not doing a wonderful podcast such as this, talking about wrestling in some capacity, I really don't know what I'd do with myself.
That's fair. I just ask because I mean, if I may go into stereotyping, you are a very well spoken erudite individual, and that's not the qualities we really think of when we think of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We think of like usually kind of a working class, and dare I say at various points like almost brutish if we're looking towards specifically the sports teams as well. So I just was curious how someone of your stature kind of came up through the Pittsburgh, scene, so to speak.
Well, I mean, I do appreciate the acknowledgement for such dialect. Oh yeah, I'm not wearing a hat right now. What am I doing? But no, honestly, a lot of people a lot of people pursue what they wish to pursue, and that's perfectly fine. I don't have any issues with that. Obviously, my ventures took me elsewhere. Most people would be more concerned about what your favorite sports team is, whoever, wherever, doesn't really matter. I was always a little bit more interested in being able to speak in such a good syntax, and I try not to sound too I'll be blunt about this one. I don't want to sound too oafish whenever I go on my travels abroad.
That is fair. And I mean, if we're going to tailor this back into wrestling, I mean, let's face it, violence really has no native tongue. A punch, a suplex, a figure four leg lock is, it is almost the same in any language, at least in terms of execution and the visceral feelings we get watching those things in action.
I do agree. There are certain universal languages in any vernacular or in any country, anywhere you go. Violence is one of them. I also do believe that a society that would separate its warriors from its scholars or philosophers will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools, or the reverse. I think either is apropos.
Again, hard agree. I believe it was. Well, I could say the Romans because they stole a lot of stuff from the Greeks, but I believe the Greeks, when their Senate chose to go to war, a yes vote in the chambers was an automatic draft into said conflict. So you didn't have, and I think it's apropos coming into this day and age, but that's about as political as this podcast is going to go. But again, if you said like yes, let's go to war, after the committee meeting or whatever, the hearing you want to call it, they had to go get their spears and shields and prepare for the battle should enough votes been cleansed for it. So they weren't letting their military hide behind the offices either. So very apropos in the realm of professional wrestling. And even the people we see nowadays that kind of will say take a backseat to it. And when I say backseat, I'm talking more about valets and managers. A lot of valets and managers strapped on the boots at one point as well, and are still indirectly leading the charge or putting themselves in harm's way. Dare I speak? Because Lord knows I've watched one of our local managers take way too many bonks to pepping up his charges for matches. So
It's something where if you're implying that something has happened to this individual, I wish him or her or them, if there's more than one, all the very best, provided they don't interfere with this gentleman's interests.
well, they're local. They're fine. Like he got up. He yelled at me after the last time he took a hit. So I think I think he's fine.
All right, very well, very well.
Though he calls himself the devil, So I don't know. He might have his fingers out that far, but as far as I know, he's strictly a Midwest man, Mr. Mark Storm.
Hmm, the
But
devil you
I
know. Interesting that you bring that up.
oh, have you met a few devils in your time?
Oh, I've had my tussles with a few demons, a few devils. I know a handful of angels. This gentleman gets around.
That is fair. The combination of class and professional wrestling are two things that provide a lot for travel, and so
Uh,
that
sometimes you have no idea.
that being said, like something I do like to ask, since we're talking about traveling or whatnot, and we're talking about the realm of performance within professional wrestling, like where, like just in like, where is your favorite venue to perform in? Do you have like a venue that's kind of like sticks out in terms of like, I don't know, whether it's the architecture, or something more visual or visceral is the crowd reaction. Like I always point out, like I'm a man of actual low class despite my vocabulary, and my favorite venue is an old inflatable soccer dome. But you know, to
Hmm.
each their own. So what stands out to you as favorite
Hmm.
venue in your travels?
That was actually a mighty fine question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Hmm. Favorite venue? From an architectural standpoint, speaking strictly, I have been in a handful of churches, but there is one specific. It's St. Luke's out in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That every time I go there, number one, I feel a need to bless myself or sometimes pray to the Buddha for my safe return. But speaking strictly from a visual standpoint, I have to admit, just the old time architecture to me is absolutely breathtaking.
I I think it's fascinating the amount of like churches and other religious buildings that come into the play in professional wrestling. And I'm not even referring to just like some of the fancy churches that have rec centers, but out closer to my direction, it's still a bit of a drive, but we have Destination 6 Wrestling, and their headquarters is an old church that is, if it's been remodeled at all, barely. Like it still has the stained glass. You sit in pews to watch the show, and like the VIP section is the choir, the old choir pit, and like that is probably like, it's one I bring up a lot just because the sheer imagery of it with the dichotomy of professional wrestling while still like looking at the stained glass and seeing some of the like inlaid religious iconography is just kind of a sight to be seen.
And actually, Destination Six, that one has this gentleman's attention as well. Unfortunately, I haven't had much of a chance to move out that direction and check them out, but time will tell.
Never say never in the realm of professional wrestling. And I don't know, like it's local enough. Maybe I have ears over there. I don't know. If they
Mhm.
have, they haven't reached out to me. But I've had several of their several of their roster members on the show. So, and they all speak highly of it. And the fact that they use a six-sided ring is also an interesting point for a chunk of them as well. So,
Yeah,
have
I
you?
only how many other places do I know that do a six side? Not I know I know that TNA back at that time did. I want to say I only know a handful of other places that have gone to a six-sided ring, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, most of my experience, and again, it's not necessarily firsthand going to them, but lucha, like the six sided, seems to be more of a lucha tradition outside of TNA slash Impact, at least in terms of the American wrestling scene. So the only one I've really seen with any frequency is Destination Six doing it.
Hmm,
But again, it's something it's something different and sets them apart from some of the other local promotions.
I do agree with that.
And of course, you know, what's the best way to market oneself? By showing you're different than everybody else.
I agree with that as well. That's why I prefer this type of an aesthetic. It makes me, what's the old adage? Stick out like a sore thumb.
Yep. I mean, well, in a realm of tank tops and like variations like track suits, like there's not too many suit jackets running around in a professional. So, you know, we though if we need to be garish, we could break out the $1 million man Ted DiBiase with his sparkly outfits or sparkly tuxedos. Not just outfits, they were tuxedos. Though getting that evil laughter that Ted had, that's a whole nother thing that I don't think money can replicate.
Unfortunately, I don't have that type of a range. That I will leave to Mr. DiBiase himself.
Oh, it's probably blinding when you get under like the indie spotlights too. It's one thing when you're in the big arena, but when you're in the smaller, more intimate venues, I imagine the sparkles are distracting and blinding. I mean, but I don't know. I'm just a plebe.
I mean, you would be mildly surprised, especially at first. It could be a little bit overwhelming, but once you get used to it, then it just becomes another day in the office.
Oh, see, there you go. It's again like my office is usually a microphone, a small little webcam, and a door that I have to close to keep the cat out from so she doesn't rub her face on my microphone. But yeah.
Fortunately for me, my office is wherever the road takes me. My mantra is have ring, will travel. And would I be open to coming out to the Midwest? Absolutely. I've been down south before a few times. I've been out east, especially recently. Not too many ways for me to go up north since where I sit is a little bit pushing the Canadian border.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. But going along with that, like, do you have any places, well, either specifically company wise or just geographically speaking, that has your eye that needs more Godrick Sandwell? Besides everywhere, of course, but one specifically, like what would be like a bucket list type item for you to perform in?
Well, not to be braggadocious, but I imagine many a promotion could use a little helping of yours truly, Godric Sandwell. Once again, don't make me blush. But in terms of where would I want to go in specific, well, as the mentioned, Destination Six is on my lexicon of places that I would love to get to. There is actually one specific in Canada that I would love to get to at least one time in my life, and actually, that would be what is that called? That would be mystery wrestling.
Oh, I don't get me wrong. I am a fan of mystery wrestling, but that is not something I expected to be a bucket list item for one such as yourself.
Oh,
I feel a lot of the humor is a little bit more of, we'll call it a lowbrow variety, and I pegged you for someone who prefers more serious competition. Not that, don't get me wrong though. This is as a whole. When you on the flip side, you have gentlemen like Stu Grayson who are very much uh, violent, sadistic individuals as well. But as a whole, when a company features Sasquatch in various forms, or like, not to speak ill of the man, I'm a fan, but Cecil Nix and his, I don't know, trying to light people on fire with lighters. I don't associate one as such as yourself with that crowd.
you would be surprised. Obviously, I'm a little bit more of a student of, say, a Socrates or even a Carl Jung, but even I can enjoy such a lighthearted humor. Although, if the going gets tough and yours truly needs to get serious, there's not too many others that could compare.
Oh, that is fair enough. And mystery wrestling is becoming one of the hot spots in the North American wrestling circuit, and with a very large, very devout social media following. So anytime you can get more eyes on yourself, that is a boon to one's worth.
And eyes on one individual could mean more eyes on everyone else. And I say, hey, one wins, all wins. And that sounds good to me.
Yeah, can't argue with the facts. More eyes, more cash, and more roads travel. The traveling can be half the fun, or at least give you plenty of stories to regale in the locker room or wherever else you happen to travel.
I'm a little bit more partial to the telling of the stories myself, but again, not to be braggadocian. I once again don't make me blush.
That is fair. So Mr. Wrestling is the big one. Like, well, that's that. As I said, like, this is surprising, but cheap plug for this here podcast. I did get one Psycho Mike on the show a handful of weeks ago. So
Yeah, I heard
I
about that.
I cannot complain nor speak that much ill of mystery wrestling, especially having one that's a self-labeled psycho. And I know I said before we got in the air that I was going to try not to curse, but one that was also a diagnosed. This is a doctor's note, so diagnosed piece of shit. So like, I can't speak too terribly ill of said promotion, or it's the people that work for it. But yeah, Mystery Wrestling, and of course you referenced Destination Six. Have you had the opportunity to work in Canada yet, or is that just a bucket list item at this point?
Right now, a couple of things are preventing me from getting things that I need to be able to get to Canada. So, unfortunately, I have to wait for a little while, but at some point, I'm getting up to Canada.
Aye, that is fair. And again, if you're by proxy, that near to it, I mean, you don't have to worry too much about some of the other unpleasantness involved in traveling, whether it's airport connections or I don't know. Do we have trains that cross the border like that? Actually, train would be awesome to go, but that could be a whole other. Put that in the comments if anybody's aware of train rides to various Canadian cities, and then we'll just hope for the best that they're in the localized area to
Hmm.
one of us. Well, probably won't be me because I'm one state away from Canada, so it's still a bit of a drive. But anyway,
Actually, I'll second that motion because if I'm thinking correctly, maybe this train ride could have a wine tour as well. And, well, yours truly doesn't mind having a glass of wine and enjoying some scenic views.
I back in the olden days, and by olden days I meant my younger days, not necessarily the days of the robber barons, but so yeah, if you had the connections, and train was cheaper than driving, and you didn't have the hassle of driving either. So if I left my metropolitan area, took the train, and then this is the days before Uber, so then I made my friends ferry me around. But still, going from my locale to say Chicago, you know, get to see the prairie that way was actually surprisingly great.
Yeah, very good. Thankfully, I don't mind doing my own driving, but should I have a couple of difficulties, not only do I have a most talented chauffeur, but I also have a very faithful butler to help me out as well.
See, I didn't have any of those things. I was broke coming out of college, so that was me fending for myself. But digressing. But until those points, you still have you know we talked about what a hotbed Pittsburgh was, and as I said, like obviously I'm no expert on the scene, but like places like 880 has crossed my path, and then of course Enjoy Wrestling, which I've actually sponsored off and on in the past as well. Um, have you had the opportunity to work for either one of those promotions?
I can't say I have. We haven't been able to connect as of yet, and I'm hoping the key term is yet.
Oh, of course. I mean, again, putting getting your name out there, and one way to do that, you know, make your waves in the ring, and then throwing your name out here for I don't know, however many listeners that bother to listen to this here podcast. I don't know how many are in your local area, but you know, oh, there's always room for more listens, more fans, and more eyes on the product. And my guests, such as this week's guest, Godrick Sandwell. So, um, cheap plug in the middle of this to remind everyone who I'm talking to. Sometimes I'm professional. Not really. You just got lucky today because
No, I would never call
this
that unprofessional.
um but so we've kind of talked about your to kind of keep a theme going on. We talked about the famous favorite kind of venues and the interesting venues. Do you have like a venue that's notable for the crowd reaction or the type of crowd that
Hmm.
brings to the show? And then I'll use an example. I always enjoy like going to the shows that are like, I mean, okay, free because I'm cheap, but a lot of times like free and like or for festivals and whatnot, because it brings a crowd that isn't necessarily familiar with one product, and I think it always brings out the more interesting fans when they're not necessarily experts in the company or professional wrestling in general.
Hmm. I do agree that festival crowds can be they can either be really fun to work in front of or they can be really challenging to work in front of, and I haven't found a lot of in between. Although, however, there is one special place for me. It's actually down in Pikeville, Tennessee, which is about an hour north of Chattanooga, if you need a point of reference. The promotion is called Warpath Pro Wrestling, and granted, I haven't had a chance to get there recently because my travels have dictated that I go elsewhere. That's just unfortunately how it is. However, I will say some of their fans down there, I don't know why, but I'm eternally grateful that they took me in, and they just they're great fans of my work. They're terrific to work in front of, and I'm just eternally grateful for them.
Hey, the whys at the end of the day don't matter. What matters is the fact that they latched on and they appreciate your efforts, whether it is for the character of one's personality or the quality of work in the ring. So, you know, I think it's Chris Jericho that had the concept of why ask why. It just be grateful, appreciate the fact that you have that crowd in the palm of your hand, especially or at least that crowd in particular in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, actually, I'm starting to agree with that more and more as my time is going along in this little niche world of ours.
Oh, in my various lines of work, that has become a mantra because life is life is unpredictable, and let's to use, I don't want to say vulgar because it's not vulgar, but to use a word like the character, life is weird, and weird, lots of things that you could consider weird just happen on the day-to-day basis, and sometimes it eases one's burden just to be like, I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to accept that it happened and then react to it, the best of my ability. And this is the social worker Rob talking. This is not even pro wrestling fan Rob talking. This is shoot job Rob talking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we're going to go that particular route, perhaps a more stoic side of Godrick would say something to the Ken of just simply enjoy the moment for what it is, and move on to the next.
I have truer words have never been spoken, and I think as a whole, like that is a high point to wind things down upon. So to be respectful of your time and the time of our listeners, we'll go ahead and wind things down. Like, where can we find you online? And where can we support you either in person, or if you have online merch, where can we find those things?
Oh, all right. Let me see here. I am on Facebook and YouTube right now. Gentleman of Exquisite Caliber, Godrick Sandwell on Facebook, or if you want to look for me on YouTube, you can either search up Godrick Sandwell directly or G Sandwell 117 if you prefer that. As it stands currently, I don't have an online merch store, but I am working on that as we speak. It's a irritatingly slow process, but be that as it may. As for some of my next up and coming ventures, let's see. I believe this Friday Hmm. Am I going to be somewhere in central Pennsylvania? Forgive me, I'm blanking on the city off the top of my hand. As for this Saturday, which is 100% confirmed, I will be out east near the Allentown area for Battlefield Pro Wrestling, alongside my Lord of the Wild, the Lycan Warlock, as his herald of the old ways in Warwolf Creed.
There we go. And if I'm doing my due diligence as podcast host, I will at least prop the social medias in the descriptor below, so you can copy and paste that into your browser of choice, because Lord knows podcast hosts don't like to make things easy and just click on links. But I digress. That's a whole nother gripe. But Godrick, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure hearing about your journey through the wacky world of professional wrestling, and kind of being able to hear some of your aspirations and just general favorite places to be and be at.
It was an honor, sir. I thank you for your time as well.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, Please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaOfCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamerer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.